You know, people in Saskatchewan often like to say that the land here is so flat, if you stare into the horizon for long enough, for hard enough, you can actually see the future coming. In my opinion, that's the most important aspect of any great Prime Minister. The ability to look into the future with a sense of hope, optimism, a genuine belief in the potential of your country to become the best nation it can be. Now, growing up, one of my biggest points of pride as a Canadian citizen was the idea that we're looked to as leaders on a global stage. Not only in the creation of socially progressive and environmentally progressive policies, but we're also seen as a model for development, both economically and socially in the world. In 2006, I was given the opportunity to work with the United Nations, and meeting people from countries like Kenya, Sierra Leone, Nicaragua, and hearing about the obstacles that they encounter when they try to make a difference in their countries really opened my eyes to the overwhelming potential that we have as Canadian citizens and as a nation to change this world in a positive way. My name is BJ Bodner. I'm from Castlereagh, Saskatchewan. I'm 18 years old. My dream for Canada is to see us fulfill that responsibility as global leaders and to change this world for the better, the overwhelming opportunities we have. So how exactly do we get there? How exactly do we make Canada a leader on a global stage again? Well, in my opinion, there's three main steps that I'd institute as a Prime Minister that would get us there. The first one pertains to our foreign aid contributions. Most Canadians would like to believe that we contribute enough financially and in other ways to other countries around the world, but the numbers themselves suggest otherwise. To put it all in perspective for you, in an average year, the Canadian public will spend 50 times more on cosmetic products than we will on foreign aid. This kind of shows us that we as a nation are starting to care more about perfume and eyeliner than we do about ending things like third world suffering, conflicts around the world that we have all the tools to solve but just refuse to use. So, as Prime Minister, I would promise, number one, to never use perfume or eyeliner while in Parliament. And number two, I'd substantiate this claim by increasing our foreign aid contributions by an additional 50% over what's currently required, and making our bureaucracy more active in other nations and in the developing world. Right now we have too much of a focus simply on our trade partners and economic allies. If we're going to make a true difference, our bureaucracy also needs to be in the developing world. The second thing that I do to help Canada become a leader is fix our policies on a domestic level. You know, when we think about things like child poverty and hunger, we often tend to think of them as international concerns, things that are disconnected from our own lives in Canada, things that only exist in other countries and other places. But the simple reality is that in most communities and in most cities, you don't need to look any farther than your own backyard to find these issues, to find them in a real way. As Prime Minister, I'd like to see a redistribution of funding to make sure that the inner city and perimeter schools get a greater allocation of resources to help the disenfranchised youth within our society get the same opportunities to make their hopes and their dreams come true in their lives. You know, we always talk about youth as our greatest resource into the future, but it's time that we start doing things today to make sure that they can fulfill that. I'd also like to see a fully funded nutritional program in all schools that have the need, so that no young people ever have to go to school hungry. The third part of my plan to renew Canada's leadership role, the one that's closest to my heart on a personal level, is the development of a stronger national strategy around climate change. I spent a large part of this past summer researching climate change in the Canadian High Arctic. And I can say with absolute certainty that not only is this the issue of the day or the decade, this is the issue of our time. It's the issue of my generation. Never before have we seen an environmental problem that threatens to change every society, every ecosystem, the lives of every person, and in fact every square foot of our planet. Countries that are able to develop the most effective strategies around the mitigation, adaptation to the effects of climate change are going to be given a competitive advantage in just about every functional way. And not only that, it's the ethically and morally responsible thing to do. And hey, it's the Canadian thing to do. As Prime Minister, I'd allocate a percentage of our conventional energy revenues and put it towards the research and development of sustainable technologies. And I'd also create a program to implement existing sustainable technologies within our economy. Also, I'd phase out the coal-fired power generation. And I'd make R2000 building efficiency standards mandatory across the board. In addition to that, I'd make the Canadian prairies the wind power capital of North America. Martin Luther King once said that our lives begin to end the minute we become silent about the issues that matter. There's no shortage of issues to care about in this world, and in my opinion, there's no shortage of life for Canadian leadership. I'm BJ Bodner. It would be an honor and a privilege to lead this great country as our next great Prime Minister.